Well, hello, welcome back to the channel. And yeah, I haven't made a video in a while. I'm still kind of uninspired to an extent. That's why I resorted to a questions and answer video, as you can see by the title. But that being said, there really isn't a lot of happening. I'm still being a very responsible adult, a very responsible person, and still kind of, taking the world seriously. So to an extent, really haven't photographed much, but I'm trying to read a lot online, seeing what other creators are doing and seeing what they're, what they're going through. And it's a lot of the same stuff, and I'm going to tackle some aspects in this. But I wanted to comment a couple of things I saw on Twitter, some conversations I was a part of, and then also I reached out on Instagram for a couple questions. So it's a Q&A. I think a couple little interesting topics, but something definitely in regards to the state of photography and gear is going to come up as well. But let's just, dive right into it. One of the first questions I had from Instagram was, what camera do I want to see in 2021? And personally, we already had, Fuji, Sony come out with stuff already, but I would really love to see, and it's tough because it is tough times. Companies are still recovering. They're still trying to put out stuff, even though Sony and Fuji put out a ton during the, everything going on last year as well to now. So they still did a lot, but I still want to see a Fuji X-H2. I think Sony has put out some very good stuff. I'm still waiting for Nikon to really strike me with something, but a Fuji X-H2 would be something that I'd be very interested in. I reviewed the X-H1 for a while. If you want to see that, I'll link that down below. But I really enjoyed the camera, the form factor, the tilt screen, the video capabilities. But the one thing I think holding it back is they were looking at the X-H1, the XH line, as being more their video route, even though they had like the X2, 3, 4, now the 4, etc. But I think that might be the roadblock to getting an XH2 is they put a lot of their video stuff into the XT4, XT3 and XT4. So I don't know if they're going to concentrate on that line. Like Sony kind of specifically makes, higher resolution photography cameras, lower res, better video cameras, etc. I just don't know if Fuji's going to go that route with the X-H2, but I would really, really like to see that happen. But I don't think they're going to do an X-H2 because of them having an X-T4, and even some of the rumored specs, we're hearing probably an X-T5 would have. And on Twitter, there's an interesting kind of conversation and question that came up, and I just want to read it kind of more specifically as someone brought up, what is the point of owning a large film camera collection, especially if you don't use it? What is the purpose, and is it hoarding? Now, I'm someone who has collected, 30, 40 kind of very unique cameras. The Polaroid 600 SE is one of my favorite ones. I'll show you just a brief as some of the stuff on my shelf. But it is an interesting question, but I think it's a very negatively focused. And one of the more complaints, the points that were brought up, is that, well, if you're buying all these cameras and say they're in more working condition, or you could put film in them and new batteries, and they would work pretty easily, are you kind of taking away from others' access that would have used it? Now, there were a lot of film cameras made. I mean, a lot. Hence, there was a lot of film before digital photography even came out. And I absolutely do not think it's hoarding. I mean, you can hoard anything, but I think it's you can educate there. You can appreciate, collecting is fun. Having variety is fun. And especially something that I used to do and I still should do is you could share a lot about these cameras from the past to you guys and girls out there who maybe have never heard of them before or seen them. You can learn about them. And then shooting with them. No matter what kind of camera you have, there's a different aspect, there's a different look, there's a different feel that comes off of them, even different kinds of film. So I don't agree that there is no purpose for that. I think it's something fun you could do, and you can just do something different. And in a time right now when you're looking for something to do, I think film photography is something fun. It's not necessarily the cheapest, obviously, anymore, but it's something that you can learn, dive into, and just have a lot of fun with. But knowing the history of the cameras and everything, I don't know, there is way more positives than the kind of blindsided thinking of you're stealing film cameras from others. That's silly in my opinion. Another question I was asked on Instagram was, why don't I cover newer lenses. It's like been a while. Now, funny enough, the last video that I made was about the Sigma 16mm f1.4, but it's not the newest thing. It's just something I really enjoyed, and that's what I like to talk about. Gear that helps me, that makes my workflow easier, and stuff that I just like in general. But and I think this is a problem within the gear photography world, lenses are boring. They are so boring. There is nothing new and innovative coming out. Not until I see a 24 to 105 f1.2 come out will I be blown away by something. All these new 35s by like Artesian and Valtra, all this kind of stuff, cool. But there's nothing new and innovative coming out. There's always an 85-1.8 coming out, a 1.4, a 50-1.8, blah, 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 blah. Lenses right now are an absolute boring high. And that's great because back in the day, you know what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we were begging for other brands and for Sony to make more lenses for their cameras, you know, exactly kind of to that point. And it's happened. So it's amazing that that's happened, but we're at a very good point right now to where we don't need much, but there's so much BS coming out that it's not even focusing on the camera technologies anymore to an extent. Once again, there is good stuff being made, but it just the plain simple is camera lenses are boring right now. There is nothing new and creative about them, and I don't know what that would take, but I said it needs to be something insane in the membrane for that to happen. But camera lenses, I don't care about breaking news camera lenses anymore unless something really blows the socks off and makes me go, oh, I can't believe this was made. An interesting question I got from Instagram as well is, has the current world issues impacted my business? I don't really, and I haven't even before everything happened last March, I really stopped doing a lot of stuff for money. I quit weddings a year and a half before that. A year and a half before that, I stopped doing events for a lot of this stuff. I was just really getting uninspired, and I just kind of didn't care. You know, once again, I do work full-time in this sports media world, but I love to do a lot of photography on the side as well because it's a passion and you can make good money from it. But I didn't. But a lot of friends that I know who are creatives, photographers, videographers, obviously were impacted a lot. And when that is your bread and butter and you all of a sudden get nothing, of course, that's not good. So I definitely know people who've got impacted by it, but personally, I have not. And it's been a very interesting time, you know, pretty low time for myself and a lot of people. But one thing I will say is that I took the time, because I haven't even been photographing since, you know, some of the stuff in the summer when there was, you know, a lot of the movements going on and the rightful needed coverage of that kind of stuff. I did a little bit of that in a safe environments, but I haven't done that, and I really need to challenge myself to learn something. So what I did is, one thing I always wanted to learn was how to like stream on Twitch, learn about broadcasting software, like OBS, all that kind of stuff, Stream Elements, Streamlabs, blah, blah, blah. And since like January, I've gone onto Twitch. I do different kind of stuff, not photography stuff, but I've really learned and jumped into learning how to stream. And it is a fascinating world. It's very interesting, and it's something you should learn for the future in general, because that's really taken over the past couple years as it is. But I do stream on Twitch. I'm the guy with the eye. If you're ever bored, follow whatever. But I took the time during this current world issues to learn something creative and learn something that I've been holding on to. And if that's my one takeaway from not being able to do much for over a year, I'm happy with that, because it's a current world thing. Lastly but not leastly, one of the things I was asked is, what is my gear setup? Once again, one of the common things, and I've been known to move gear around just for interest and boredom and just to see where the next thing goes. But I was asked, you know, what is my current setup? And it's still the Fuji X100V. I still really enjoy this camera. Like I said, I really haven't used it a ton. I mean, I'm very comfortable with it. I've used it enough to where I can recommend it, etc. But I mean, it's a very good camera. You know, not much to be said about it. I've got reviews and I've talked about that to an extent. I still have the wide angle and tele converters, you know, do long exposures with the wide angles, telephoto for more of the documentary type of stuff. I still use the Hyperion camera strap. I highly recommend them. It's a guy named Pablo in like Greece who makes amazing stuff as well. I haven't used a lot of flash, but if I do, I still have one of my Yongnuo flashes and the wireless triggers. But yeah, no. And then someone asked if I do drone stuff anymore. No, drones are absolutely boring and overplayed anymore. But yeah, I haven't had a chance to shoot much, being respectful and responsible adult in this world. So that being said, what kind of cameras do you want to see in 2021? What are you hoping kind of happens in the gear world? What are you looking forward to see? Or what is absolutely boring right now in this niche, in this industry? Let me know down below. Let's have a fun discussion, fun, well-informed discussion, and go from there. Thanks for taking the time to watch. Appreciate you asking the questions. And also, to talk about the film camera stuff too. You know, is it hoarding? Is it hurting the film industry? I don't know. I still think it's a little silly, but I think it's just a little interesting to talk about. But thanks for watching. Keep an eye out.